Great.
This will be fun. I'll send those clips to y'all.
We
crack ourselves up.
Yeah, we do.
We're good, man. I love this. We fit in here.
Okay, so ladies, let's begin at the beginning, starting with Nancy. What are your earliest memories of music?
My earliest memories of music is singing La Guadalupana with my grandma when I was 3.5 years old. And then coming to this country in '89 when I was 4-ish, and learning all the, just like the kid songs through my dad, who is also a singer and a musician. And I think those are my earliest memories. Yeah.
And then as for you, Anisette?
I would have to say my earliest memories are of my parents playing mariachi and them playing and me just being there. I must have been like 4 years old, just watching them play, sing, and even at home too, just singing around, warming up their voices, my dad playing music. So I think, yeah, those are definitely my earliest, yeah.
And Darlene, as for you?
I would say church. But I guess the same as Annie was saying, hearing my parents sing, but also just being around that environment. It was just always music and singing. So yeah, I was around 2, I think, when I first started like trying to sing and discovered that I liked, well, I don't think I remembered being 2 and discovering that I could sing, but it was like my experience with it in church.
Mm-hmm. And what did you like about those experiences? What caught your attention about singing in particular?
I remember my dad would always play this one song that would make me cry. And I was like, my parents shared the story as I got older, but every time my dad would play that song, I would just instantly start crying. So I think for me, it was feeling something, like I felt the music. So I thought.
What was that song?
It's called Open My Eyes, Lord. And it's very like melodic and just sweet and calm. And I just always remember feeling something. And I think that's why I would cry, because it was just a connection. But I didn't mean you're 2, so.
You remember when you were 2?
Yes. Yeah. And even when I hear that song now, I'll still feel that same emotion and cry.
We were just talking about it outside, how we all have this connection of like starting to sing at church. Like I started to sing at church, Annie sang at church, and Dar sings at church.
My first gigs, I would say, were at church. Because my parents are musicians, and I remember my dad saying, "When you're ready to start performing, I'm going to take you to learn the misa, the traditional Catholic mass. So you're going to play and you're going to sing and you're going to learn that repertoire first before I take you out into the real world, the real mariachi world." So, yeah.
And how do you think that prepared you for the mariachi world, those gigs at church?
Well, I mean, we still play a lot of masses, anything, weddings, quinceañeras. Also, I just think that it's a very cultural thing too. So you get familiar with what the mass is, the order of the songs. I think it's a beautiful thing, and you go to worship. And so I think that it was a very amazing experience, I would say. We were just talking about it, right? Mm-hmm. She was asking me, what'd you do today? And I said, well, I went to church, So it's something that's very, deep-rooted in, I think, who we are.
It's part of our culture. Like, it's not a December without El Día de la Virgen, in my opinion.
Claro.
Like, whenever we do the Día de la Virgen, I know that soy mexicana, soy en mariachi, and I have this beautiful, rich culture that we inherited.
Mm-hmm.
When you say we, have you played those masses as a group together?
Actually, no.
You know what? No, but I had a thought. Mm-hmm. I was like, you can write everything. I was like, why not write a worship song? That'd be amazing.
Oh, totally.
Or like uplifting,
As Las Chorizeras, we have not done that. And mostly because Las Chorizeras is more of a mariachi fusion singer-songwriter group. Mm-hmm. And usually those gigs are done by the traditional mariachi groups that we also are a part of.
Mm-hmm. But that's interesting that you pointed that out, because I don't think we had ever spoken about that.
No.
So that's awesome.
And on the note on the ensemble work, what were some of the first ensembles that you participated in as kids, since music has been a part of your entire life? Darlene?
I just remember my parents like just giving me a mic, going, go up in front of everybody. And,
Everybody
like,
at the church or everybody where?
And I remember I was 4 years old, holding it like a microphone like this, actually, with the what do you call the spongy
Pop filter? I don't know.
So I just remember that being little, and this felt like huge in my little hand, you know? So I would those were my first experiences, which would be singing alone. And for some reason, I always found myself crying. So it was like halfway through the song, I guess I was feeling it so much in my heart that I would end up crying. But those were my first experiences singing as a little kid, really, in front of like people. So yeah,
that's amazing. Let me think. So I mean, ensembles. So I have 4 brothers younger. I'm the oldest, and since I have 2 parents that are musicians, music was just always there. It was always there. So we would play around and. You know, we would like mimic musicals, like, oh, you sing this or you sing that, you know. So it was very musical, but later on, I wanted to play violin, and I asked my dad, and he actually put me in orchestra at school. So I started with orchestra. I mean, I've played orchestra my whole life too. I must have been in 4th grade, and after that, you know, I just continued to play orchestra up until like college. So I've always done orchestra, and then mariachi I didn't start till, actually I started mariachi 1st grade. Gosh, I can't even remember. I'm like, all these things are coming back. I started mariachi in 1st grade, guitar. It was a requirement, the school that I was at, everybody had to play guitar. All the 1st graders had to play guitar. It wasn't a matter of like, oh yeah, yes or no. No, like it was a thing that they brought. It was a program they brought to the school. So everybody played guitar, and I guess that's what sparked my own mariachi interest. I know my parents were mariachis, but for myself, I felt like that's where it was like that spark where I'm like, oh, I think I want more of the mariachi music in my life. But yeah.
The first mariachi ensemble that I was in was called Ritmo Mariachi Kids, because I grew up in Anaheim, in Orange County, in Fullerton, like Anaheim and Fullerton, we went back and forth. And this one teacher named Gabriel Zavala, may he rest in peace, he's no longer with us, but he started this children's nonprofit where he himself, like solito, he taught all the kids how to play violin, guitarrón, vihuela, and guitar. And I started on guitar. And then from Ritmo Mariachi Kids, I moved on to like the middle school mariachi, Puño de Oro, and from the middle school mariachi, I moved on to what he considered the professional mariachi, was Mariachi Anacatlan, which was a combination of Aztlán and Anaheim, Anacatlan. And it was like all the older teens, and we would do chambas, we would get like $50 maybe per day. Yeah. And it was like, oh my God, I'm winning money, I'm getting money, and I'm playing mariachi music. Those were the 3 very important groups that I was in as a teen and young adult. And then later, I joined, I went to school and I studied music. I was in vocal jazz choirs and women's choirs. And from there, I moved to LA as an adult, and I toured with Flor de Toloache a little bit, and then I joined Las Colibri. And then I was like, you know what? I gotta bring a little bit of my Toluca with me. And then I formed this mariachi fusion female right now trio.
Well, I just learned so much about you. I know. I just learned so much about you.
Yeah.
This is cool.
I know. We're like getting to know each other even more.
Know. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm enjoying this very much as well, learning about y'all. I wanted to ask then about the instruments that you first played, because you've settled perhaps in different places than when you started. So what were the first instruments that you were exposed to, and then how did you come to settle playing the instruments that you play now? Nancy, we'll start with you.
In elementary school, I played the flute. I love the flute. And up until like 8th grade, and then I was like, I'm too cool for the flute. I needed change my instrument. At that moment, I was already also playing guitar. I started on guitar, and then I switched to vihuela. It was easy to switch to vihuela. I just felt like it was easier because it has less strings and it's smaller. Although some people say it's harder, but I don't think it is at all. And so now I settled on guitar and vihuela, but I also teach voice. I teach voice in 2 nonprofits here in Los Angeles. I teach mariachi voice, and so I am forced to play the piano.
Oh.
But I do play the piano. I mean, I'm not like prolific on the piano, but I will accompany a student on a piano. Yeah.
Actually, you're pretty good.
Thank you.
I've heard you.
Thank you.
You as well. I've heard you
thank
play
you.
piano as well.
Anisette, did you start off playing the violin? You mentioned there was guitar as well.
Oh yeah, sorry. Like as I'm talking, I'm like, oh, things are coming back to me. I started on guitar. I started first grade guitar, and I played guitar for, I would say, like my elementary days. You know, I had guitar, but then I would see my dad play violin, and mind you, my mom plays guitar, but I would see my dad play violin, and something just called to me from the violin. I just felt like it was such a beautiful instrument, and this is crazy, but I remember visualizing myself playing, even though I was not even playing violin. So, and I would see myself, and I'm like, gosh, I feel like it would make me so happy to play violin. I've never told anybody this. Wow, that's
When
crazy.
you would see yourself, would you see yourself by yourself as part of an ensemble? What were those images like?
On stage, and I was young, you know, but I would visualize myself on stage the way I had seen my parents do, and it was just more like a picture of myself. Like I don't know, like little did I know, like years later, gosh, I've been on stage so much, you know, like that came true. But I had told my dad I want to play violin, and he said okay. He got me a violin, and he put me in orchestra. And I said, well, why don't you teach me? He's like, no, I want you to learn the fundamentals. I want you to have that basic knowledge and that technique of how to read music and all that. And then later on, if you want to play mariachi violin, you can come to me. So in 6th grade, I was like, I'm ready to play mariachi violin. And that's when he kind of started me. And he put me into a group that he was teaching, a youth group, Mariachi Sonido de Mexico. And I was in that group from that point till like almost my junior year in high school. So I was there for majority. And it was kind of like similar to what you said, you know, it was a youth group. We would play everywhere. It was, what is it, 501c3 organization?
Nonprofit?
It was,
nonprofit,
it was a nonprofit. So when we got paid, it wasn't like, okay, you're getting paid, like, we're compensating. It was more like, this is for like future scholarship money or stuff like that. So so I belonged there, and then I just stuck with the violin. Like I felt like it was the instrument. I just kept wanting more, and then throughout my schooling, I did both orchestra and mariachi simultaneously, and yeah, until now. I mean,
Now she envisions herself in a choricera.
no, I never said that, but now that you know, it's like I'm reflecting on all the early things. You know, it's nice.
And then Darlene, what was that like? Those first forays into the instruments, into the instrument of your voice as well.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I feel like the first instrument I held was a tambourine. And then after that, it was like a piano. Then it was a drum set. Then it was a bass guitar. But I've never really focused on an instrument. The one I've focused on more is my vocals. Because I just, growing up, I didn't feel like I had the patience to really learn an instrument. I should have, and I still can. But I really just focused on my vocal and songwriting. Like I like to write, and I was writing poems a lot, but to really, trust me, I tapped into every instrument, and it just wasn't, it's like I got lazy a little. Like, no, I just rather sing. So
I mean, but your voice is an instrument.
it
Like,
is,
you
yeah.
just
I
don't
feel
realize
like I
that you're-
consider that
Yeah.
my main instrument, which I focused on a lot of genres too, to kind of be versatile vocally. I like that I could do that and practice that.
So what were the genres that you would practice in as it pertains to your voice?
I liked a lot of artists that did a lot of riffs, like, which is, you know, those vocal, like Christina Aguilera, Stacey Orico. I would listen to those artists a lot to kind of just see what my vocal can do, you know. And then I would sing a little mariachi growing up too, because my grandma would sing it. And then I started like kind of liking that, the way your expression and the vowel movements in your mouth to like really interpret a song. I shouldn't say I never, but it was always an inner desire to be a part of something that I'm in right now. I just didn't know it was going to happen. You know, it's like an inner side desire. So now that I sing a lot of songs that we do when we perform, it's a dream. Like I'm living my dream. Like
That's so crazy, because she didn't sing mariachi, right?
I didn't. I would, but not. I was never part of a mariachi. I'm not a mariachi.
So she
but
brings
like
a
I'm
different
learning
element.
it here, but I have that expression and that capacity vocally. It's just, but I don't say I'm a mariachi, but I could interpret it, if that makes sense.
You mentioned that you would listen to Christina Aguilera. So I wanted to ask about the artists, whether they're very famous or whether they're your parents, famous to you, of course, that had an important role to play in your musical upbringing. Darlene, once again, start with you.
I'm going back now. Like the first artist that I really listened to was Jackie Velasquez.
Oh.
My dad came in one day and he was like, here, listen to this artist. Listen to her and learn her songs. And I remember like, why? Like, okay. Heard the album and I was obsessed with her vocal, her voice, her. So that was my first experience. And I could say she was like my teacher, even though she wasn't physically there, but I would play her songs over and over to like mimic her sound. And she has that soft tone that I'm an alto. So I learned that too growing up, to not sing so forward when you have a lower tone. So I kind of coached myself or learned in that way. Then I took vocal lessons later on, but Jackie Velasquez, I would say, to answer your question.
I love her, by the way.
Yeah, she's great.
She's amazing. What was the question?
Who were the people, whether it was your parents or a grandmother or an artist who you saw as a kid and you thought, okay, I want to do what they do the way they do it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I looked up to my parents in that capacity, because I would see them, and something about the way they performed, I'm like, I want to do that, you know? I would see other female violinists too, and I would see how they portrayed like their energy on stage, like playing violin. And there's a lot of different violinists that I'm like, okay, like for example, I can't think of her name right now. Laura Sobrino. Like I always just really, I liked her.
She one of the original reinas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was in Sol de Mexico as well. She was the first generation Sol de Mexico. And my dad also formed part of that ensemble, but she was just very powerful. I just felt like she had very powerful on stage, you know, so.
Her presence?
Her presence, yeah.
Okay.
And, but my mom also had a huge influence, because the way she carried herself on stage, I just always saw her just so confident. And, you know, so as a mariachi, I looked up to that, you know, but there's other people that I looked up to as well, like violinists, you know, in the classical scene. And then I used to dance too. I used to dance folklorico. So like my mom's family, like they have folklorico dancers. So I always had like the inner dancer in me as well. So I looked up to like certain dancers. I think there's different pieces, you know, that that form who I am now. I'm like, oh wow, like, but also mariachi groups, you know. I looked up to mariachi groups like Sol de Mexico, you know, the Mariachi Los Galleros, which was like a Jose's family. It was Jose Hernandez's family group before, and just Mariachi Vargas, you know, like groups that are just, they take mariachi to the next level. I looked up to them as well. I was like, gosh, like I would love to be, yeah, I'm female, but I would love to be that. I would love to be the best mariachi I could possibly be. So those are just a few of mine. I could keep going forever.
Good answer.
And then as for you, Nancy?
I think I've had many incarnations in this lifetime. And I will start with my first memory of my first singer, Daniela Romo. I remember being 4 years old, being in front of the TV, watching Daniela sing with her long, long hair and listening to her vibrato. And as a little girl, I would say, like, I would stare at the TV and go, like mimicking her vibrato. I didn't know what I was doing, but now I'm like, oh my God, I was mimicking her vibrato. So that was my first experience. And then coming to the U.S., I mean, I listened to Los Lobos, who I admire so much, who I was lucky enough to open up for them a few times a couple of years ago. My second band would be, not band, but artist would be Linda Ronstadt. Linda Ronstadt opened so many doors for us, for females in mariachi. She really put female mariachi in many ways in the kind of like
the zeitgeist.
Mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
In mainstream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Siempre existido. It's always existed, but for some reason, her artistry, her vocal, her presence, you know, she was such a heavyweight in the scene as a musician because she was in rock. She did rock, she did country, she was in the trio, which is why I also wanted a female, because I'm like, who wants to be Linda? I'm Linda. You're Dolly Parton. You're Emmylou Harris. And, you know, I love fusion artists. Linda was one of them. But then when I turned 10, one of my tias gave me Pies Descalzos de Shakira, and that was over.
Is that in the room? I feel like I saw it here. The album, the actual Shakira album, Pies
Oh,
Descalzos.
really? I don't know.
Oh,
There is a
Darlene.
Shakira somewhere in
I've
here.
never seen it.
In any case, you were given Pies Descalzos.
I was giving Pies Descalzos, the album by Shakira. I memorized that thing from the beginning to the end, and I idolized Shakira when I was 10. I was like, I'm going to be a songwriter just like Shakira.
Wow.
And then when I was 16, I went to Toluca. I sat in an open mic with my guitar, and I sang one of the Shakira song, and people loved it. And somebody went up to me and said, "Estás bien ashakirada." And I'm like, that's it. I'm never listening to Shakira again.
Oh, they meant it as, it was not a compliment?
It was a compliment.
Oh.
It was a compliment, but I took it as like, I need to find my own voice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But she was definitely, and then later on, I mean, I love jazz. I love Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Nancy Wilson, just all the classic female singers I just love. So with Chorizeras, I try to add a little bit of the jazz and a little bit of the mariachi and the Latin alternative pop as well.
What was the song you sang?
Antología.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The next topic I want to touch is what you were doing, what all of you were doing right before you entered this group. Where you were at musically,
Ooh, that's
as
great.
individuals and as part of whatever ensembles you were a part of before entering the group. Anisette, it looks like you're thinking about it. The wheels are turning in your brain.
I was with Reina. I was mariachi Reina Los Angeles. I played with Reina for about 3.5 years. Towards the end of that, maybe within the year, Nancy had asked me, she had approached me and said, hey, I have this group, would you want to fill in? Because she wasn't sure of the violinist at that time. And I told her, sure, and so I started learning the repertoire. And then that's when we got the Netflix thing for Lincoln Lawyer. We came out on Netflix. And even at that point, I really was not sure if I was going to commit to this group or not, because I wasn't sure how I could do both at the same time. You know, so life is funny. It's just, sometimes you end up somewhere that you don't expect. But so I was in Reina for 3.5 years, and then during that time, Nancy approached me, and I said yes to Nancy. After many conversations that we had,
I was like,
I know she was trying to
pull you in full time.
Yeah, she wanted me to be full-time Choricera. And we had worked previously together in Colibri. So in Colibri, this was about, how many years ago was this?
6, 7, maybe.
It was it must have been at least 6 years ago. And we worked together, and then fast forward, never would I have thought that she would have this ensemble, and we'd been talking about future things, but she told me what she wanted and her vision, and I remember her saying to me, I want you, Anisette, like, I want you to be, you're my dream violinist. And I was like, I've never had anybody ever tell me that. And so I essentially said yes to her, and I would have never have known or thought like we would end up being where we are now, you know, because I think that as Chorizeras, we've been finding more of our identity. Like, I don't really even think we knew what it was going to become. But I said yes to her, and I trusted my gut. I just felt like there was something there. And I remember her telling me, she's like, I want you to, if you want to write your own stuff and arrangements and stuff like that. And that caught my attention because I've never been in a position to kind of write my own things or explore that creativity that I know has always been there, but I felt like this was the platform. And so that's where I was at. And so once I committed, I still work once in a while. You've seen me with the Reinas or sometimes with Jose, doing different projects. So we have a good relationship still, and Jose understands, like, when I spoke to him. But yeah, that's where I was at right before I joined Chorizeras. Yeah.
And then what were you up to, Nancy, before you decided to finally form this group? Because I've heard you say previously that you had wanted to do this for a while.
I did. I always envisioned a group or a project where it was all the elements of all the musical styles that I love, but very like mariachi centric because I love it. And I was in a place where I came back from Toluca. I had gone into La Voz Mexico. I couldn't sign the contract because it was too crazy, and I was like, I can't sign this, Voz Mexico. And so I ended up saying, you know what, I'm not going to sign con La Voz Mexico, but I'm going to stay in Toluca. And I absorbed all of my culture in my city. One of the things that I loved was, it just reminded me of like, oh yeah, they make chorizo here. That's hilarious. Oh yeah, they call us this. When I came back, I used to walk around the Rose Bowl in Pasadena like every day. And one of those days I was walking and I'm like, dang, why don't I name my group Chorizeras? That would be great if it was like a fusion mariachi thing. But how am I going to even start it? I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew was I'm a songwriter. I love what I do. I love mariachi. I'm just going to see who bites. And on Facebook, I put looking for a backup singer. And right away, Darlene responded, and I was like, all right, I'm going to delete my post. I'm going to get Darlene. So really, we started as two Chorizeras. But mentally and spiritually, I was in a place where I was coming out of a band that I was in, that I poured my heart and soul for 5 years. And I felt like I was not reciprocated. I wasn't valued. The leader was just like not all there as far as like making people feel valued. And when I left the band, I was like, no, I want to be a good leader. I want to have a band where I respect all my compañeras, where I give everybody their proper, just like, make them feel like this is theirs too, And I want to bring these songs that I was writing to life. And really, like Anisette said, I wanted her and I want her to be expressive and creative so that we all have this Choricera sound. And we've slowly developed the sound. The first song that we put out, Dispuesto a Amar, because I was called to do the Netflix series, The Lincoln Lawyer. They wanted me to do a translation of a Journey song called Open Arms. And I translated the song, and they're like, well, can you do it mariachi style? And I was like, yeah, let me call the girls. And then they loved it so much. They're like, do you guys want to be in the show for like the last episode? So we were in the finale of the second season. And from there, we kind of gained a little momentum. We were like, okay, this could work. Let's do it. And then we just kept going. And then our second single, Pecadora, I felt like that one was cemented our Choricera sound. That's the one that was like, I think, the longest it took to create because we were figuring it out, changing this, changing that. And then when it was done, we were like, this is it. This is cool. And then our last single, Navidad Choricera, that one came out really fast.
That was like the week of.
That was a week of. I wrote the song, gave it to Anisette, gave it to the girls. We all came together, and in a week we recorded, mixed, and mastered. And I think it's because we found our sound. We were just so used to being in the studio, and we kind of know our voices and stuff. So now it's coming out a little faster.
I was in a musical project that had just ended, and I think it was like 6 to 8 months in, and I didn't know what I was gonna do, to be honest. I just was kind of figuring my way through life, just kind of taking a break, I guess, and I was starting to get the itch to sing again. But I was like, I don't know where am I gonna go? How do I, like, I feel like I've always worked really well as a team, like a team player and like groups. The solo thing, I thought about it at one point, but never really I did see myself doing that for a while, but then I liked being in a group, like in being involved in that way. So that's when she mentioned about the Facebook status. She put that on there, and when I wrote to her, it was like I just wrote to her not even knowing what it was. I just was like, it's Nancy. I hadn't seen her in almost, I don't know, years.
Like 10 years,
yeah,
girl.
it was a long
But you
time.
knew each other then.
But we knew each other
Okay.
prior to that, but I had connected with her. So when I wrote it and she writes back, hey, yes, I don't know, we met somewhere, we talked, and then she starts telling me what it is. And I'm like, oh my gosh. What? Yeah, okay. Because it was a different genre, a genre that I've heard and was familiar with, but never thinking I was going to tap into it. So for me, it's been a very beautiful exploring journey in my vocal. That's part of me that I've grown a lot. I've learned a lot from Ani and Nancy and Eunice, just musically. I love seeing them, and I've shared this with them. I love seeing them musically work and like figure things out musically. I feel like it's an honor to be in a group with women who are also just knowing how to produce or be creative in, and that I could also be creative in and enjoy that process in songwriting or finding our sound. So yeah, that's how I ended up it was a Facebook status, not knowing what I was getting into, honestly. And it's been the most magical ride. Like I'm loving it.
Yay.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Yay.
What do you think characterizes your unique sound that you've been cultivating over the last few years?
We just talked about this. I'm going to say it again. Our perspective as females. I think we're all pretty much in the same age group. We all are Mexican American. I mean, we are all coming from different upbringings, but at the same time, we meet at this like one intersection here, and we just connect both spiritually, energetically, just like everything we're experiencing. This perspective in our writing, that is what characterizes it. Of course, we're doing the whole mariachi fusion, but I think at the core, it's the fact that we're 4 females experiencing very similar things and with a lot to say.
Yeah, I think that I said this the other day too. I said, for a long time I didn't know. I'm like, do I really want to be in this ensemble? But just something told me that this was going to be good. And the more I've gotten to know these girls, I'm like, wow, like like she said, we're going through similar things. I just feel like we were at the right place at the right time with the right people, and like I feel like everything has been up, like it's been going up. Like there's resistance no matter where we go, but I just feel like we've been sometimes like you feel like you're trying and things knock you down, but I feel like it's been it's been flowing with us. At least in my perspective, I'm like, everything has been good. Everything, like, because I came in with it, like, I didn't have expectations of, okay, we're going to do this or we're going to do that, or like, not until more recently. And I'm like, wow, like, wouldn't it be awesome for us to win a Grammy? Like, that was not in my mind when I joined the group, so it's been, I feel like I've been very blessed, like, with a lot of the experiences that we've had already. And so I just feel like we're at the right place at the right time, right people. Like, I feel, like she said, spiritually, it's something.
Yeah, and also, like, I feel like we're not starting from the beginning. Like, we've met each other seasoned. We've been through stuff. And we know what's up. We're meeting up. We're like, this is what we want. and it's kind of been, it's flowing because we're not putting resistance. Sometimes the world puts resistance just because it's life and we have this and we have obligations and all these things. But like we met each other at a time where we're like, oh, we're ready. We're like, we've done this for a long time, and it feels good.
Yeah, I feel like I want to build onto that. Nancy's also really opened the space for us to show up and be creative. And I know like a lot of people have different experiences with groups in trios or bands. Like we're a band, like band mates or band members should all have that space. Not just, like I said, it's not always for everybody, but Nancy, I feel like, and you know this, she's opened that space for us to all be individually creative and show up with our talents and what we can bring to the table. So I feel like that's beautiful because it leaves us all like we're a part of it and not, oh, I'm just over here in the back, like, you know, I guess I'll just
some
hang
people
out
don't
here.
want that, right?
Some people don't, but
Some people,
but that's why I feel like you've opened that space and I want it. I'm here.
Yeah, like
right?
we've
I'm
all
showing
been
up.
ready. Yeah, we're all showing up.
yeah.
And I don't feel like, oh, I'm in the back. Like I'm here. We're all together. And we use, I like to use the word we a lot. We, us, because you've made us, I feel that. I think we all have talked about it. And as women, I feel proud of that.
I definitely feel that way because I'd never felt like, I guess, safe in that way to like release my creativity, or maybe I didn't have a platform to do it. And, you know, I've always been part of others' ensembles or other people's vision of what they want in the group. And I follow instruction. I do the best that I can. But this was very different. This is like all of us are like releasing everything that we have inside. And that's what I love about Chorizeras is like we're so versatile. Nancy is so versatile. She can write any kind of song that you could possibly dream of. Like she showed us a couple of her songs the last time we were here in this space, and it's incredible. I'm like, okay, you know, I grew up playing mariachi and classical. Now I have to think about, okay, she wrote this song in this style or this. Now I'm like trying to like incorporate that kind of style. So it's something very, very unique because I don't think a lot of bands can say that. I don't think, you know, like, yeah. I'm speechless now.
I agree.
So how do you feel you're enjoying this moment right now? The 9th of February, 2025. As a
The
group.
9th?
Only the 9th.
It's only the 9th. 4 more years. Okay. I'm enjoying the process of creating. I'm enjoying the process of visualizing and just wanting more for myself and for my art and for the band. I'm enjoying that process. I think you're right. Like in other occasions, I've tried maybe, not just me, like other people, we control everything. And right now I think that I'm trying to just let it flow and have like a clear vision of what I want for this group and for our music.
Yeah,
That feels good.
I feel thankfulness, like that I could still sing and like be able to keep that creativity and gift to share to the world, to give back. I feel is that thankfulness. Like I always tell Mark, our manager, and Nancy, every time I leave you guys, I'm just driving in my car in the food, and I'm like, thank you, universe, for the Chorizeras. Thank you for Mark.
She always
Thank you for
texts us
Nancy,
like
because-
after we see her. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. Like
Because I feel
love
like
you guys.
music for me, and I know you girls feel the same, or anyone watching this, if you're a musical, music does heal you. Music does for everybody. It's not just if you're in a band, if you can sing. It's what connects us. It's what keeps us close or start a conversation or bring people together. I see it way beyond just, oh, I'm a singer and I write or I perform. No, it's helped me. I always say music saved me. I hashtag on Instagram, hashtag music saved me, because it has. It really has.
And
on
I
a lot
love
of
her
occasions.
attitude. I love her attitude because often, and again, I've said I've been through many incarnations of like, I'm a songwriter, now I'm only a jazz singer, and now I'm a mariachi player. And when you go through a lot of that, and a lot of gigs, and a lot of yeses, and a lot of nos, you get a little jaded sometimes. And I feel like right now I'm in my grateful phase. And I think you guys remind me that we should be grateful we're so lucky we
Yeah.
get to do this every day. You wrote on a post, Darlene, like, I never take a stage for granted. I love that because I was like, I'm never gonna take a stage for granted. Like if there's 100 people, if there's one person, like this is a gift ultimately that we're giving, that was given to us, and we're just vessels, and we're gifting to the people, but we're also gifting to God or the universe or a creator, whatever you want to call it. Source.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's been a very positive experience, and the fact that she's been so open to like everyone's creativity, at least for me, I'm like, that means a lot, because I mean I've had a lot of musical experiences, and sometimes you have to go through those musical experiences to kind of build the foundation, you know, because if I think about it now, I'm like, well, I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be able to express myself musically if I didn't have all of those things, and our music wouldn't be versatile either. So I feel like I'm, at least for myself, I'm also very grateful, and I've gained friends, you know, some of the closest friends, and I am learning to express myself even more musically in this ensemble, and so I'm like looking forward to this year and to the future, because I just know that there's more to come. Like I feel it. I don't know. You guys
I feel it.
Definitely.
Do you feel it?
Yeah.
I feel like we're barely, I mean, we haven't even released our album
No,
yet.
we haven't, which we can talk
I was about to ask. Yes.
We beat Pablo to it.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's
Do you
fine.
prefer Juan Pablo or Juan?
While I fix that, I'll let you know. I prefer Juan Pablo whenever possible because that's my name.
Oh.
Like it's on my driver's license, it's Juan Pablo. It's not Juan P. Franco. I don't have a middle initial. Even though my dad insists that I do, which I don't like.
That's like my dad. My dad's name is Juan de Dios. And everyone's like, oh, de Dios is your middle name? And he's like, no. Juan de Dios is the whole thing. I mean,
Yes.
he's fine if people call him Juan, but they always say, or they'll be like, oh, you're Anisette de Dios. And I'm like, no, that's his full name. Like, it's not his middle name or his second last name or anything like that. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but like my college ID was Juan Franco, which always bothered me. Because my name is Juan Pablo. I was named after the Pope. My parents are Catholic.
Oh,
So that's why they
one
named
of
me
my
Juan
favorite
Pablo.
popes. Yeah, that was one of my favorite popes.
Hmm So
Very popey.
yes, the
Keep that one.
Don't edit.
the last topic I wanted to discuss with y'all is the music itself. There's a couple of things that caught my attention. For example, on Pecadora, I heard something I'd never heard before. Someone pluck the individual strings of a vihuela. So what brings you to that musical idea where you start the song just doing that? So you hear it for sure. There's no way you can't.
I wrote that song in Mexico City after I had broken up with someone. And I was just playing the vihuela, and that melody came to my head, and then I literally plucked it out on the vihuela, and as I was playing it, I was like, oh, this is cool just like that, right? I respect la vihuela very much, and I respect anybody who plays vihuela. That is a tough instrument. It's mainly a rhythmic instrument. It would be the equivalent of the snare drum in the drum set, right? It's meant to pierce through, and that's how I was taught to play it. I was taught to do rasgueos and apagones and just play it very traditionally. But when I songwrite, everything I learned and all the tradition just goes out the window, because then it limits you, right? So if I hear something, I'll play it. And if it makes sense, if it feels good, let me say that again. If it feels good, it stays. I think that's important, because when you overthink and you start, it loses something. And that felt good. That plucking felt good. When I got together with Eunice, she added the guitarrón part, and she started plucking with me, and I was like, that's it. Sounds really cool like that. We'll leave it.
Yeah, my process for Pecadora was very long.
You have some very complicated like parts in that piece. So what was it like for you recording that and learning all that?
So I remember when Nancy first showed me that song. It was literally not even with the guitarrón. It was just her singing and playing it. And I said, how the heck am I gonna, like, how do you transform this? Because one of the things is, I mean, if you think about it, it just repeats itself like 3 times. So I had to break
The
it.
compás, you mean?
So like it's basically the whole song is just like one, ¿cómo te digo? Like one
verse, really.
verse that just repeats itself. Like
and
it's,
even the chorus.
Yeah.
He perdido la batalla, pero no. That just repeats 3 times. It's just that. There's no
just
really
that.
verses or anything.
So in my mind, I said, well, first of all, I was like, well, I like that she made it like El Cascabel. So that's a traditional, Veracruzano, canción veracruzana in mariachi. And it showcases all the instruments, So that's the first thing that I was like, okay, it needs to be powerful. So I thought it has to be something very powerful, something that's going to be in people's faces and they're going to be like, oh, wow. But because it just repeats itself, I thought to myself, I want to have other elements because you don't want it to sound redundant to the ear. So then at least that's my process. I don't know if you knew that, but I thought, okay, I want to make it sound a little bit like Cascabel. There's a couple adornos that I do, some fills that are, you can tell they're a little more traditional, but I was like, I want it to sound dissonant. I want it to sound completely different than Cascabel. If it's like, and so I incorporated the very beginning when she's doing the plucking part, and I come in. Originally, I came in with octaves, and octaves on the violin. Back in the days of like when, I don't know if you're familiar with Paganini, he was a violinist, and people thought that he was possessed by the devil. Because,
I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Okay,
No.
so, and another thing in music, they used to see like playing octaves as a bad thing, because it was not like proper. So one of the reasons that I added octaves was because I'm like, because of that, like just that in itself is like, you wouldn't expect to hear that, I could have just added it on the recording, like in
post.
And yeah, I could have, but I actually played the octaves. So
How sinful of you.
Exactly. And then she called it, and then she was like, what did you call it? You're like, that sounds like, ¿cómo dijiste?
Ya no me acuerdo.
You said possess, not possess, you said, you used a word when I played that. You're like, you said possessive or something like that.
Ya no me acuerdo.
Okay.
But I wanted it to be epic. Like when I had described to Anisette like the song and like the vibe, I think I did describe it. I wanted it dark, moody. Maybe moody?
Maybe moody.
I wanted it moody. I mean, the song is called Pecadora, Sinner Woman.
Did you say devil notes maybe? You were like, that was like, what are your devil notes or something? I don't remember what you used.
Demonic?
No.
Maybe that's too intense. What term?
No, it's so our vision for Pecadora, actually my vision of Pecadora was actually very different. Like what I envisioned in my mind was actually like a church, like a woman like coming in with like a shawl, like a black shawl. Like that was dark. And then we changed it later, right? But essentially on the violin, I do use certain scales in there as well during the second time around that give that vibe, because I wanted it to sound almost as if something religious was there, but not really. And I forgot what the scale's called. There's a specific, they use it in Hebrew music. There's a specific name for that scale. So I use that scale specifically to kind of put that in, like in your mind, like, oh, like you could think of a woman wearing like a shawl. I'm very visual too. She knows that. I'm very visual.
And yeah, definitely with Pecadora, in the beginning, it was something a little darker. The video's a little more inspirational, right? Because it ended up being that. But in the beginning, we started kind of, I was going to call it the demonic scale.
No. No, that was not. But yeah, and then I remember for the longest time, Nancy's like, it's done. And I'm like, no, it's not done. At the very beginning, that first scale that I do, that was like the last thing I added. Like, because I kept hearing it, I'm like, I need something to build it up to the intro, so, which is funny, but I did it at the end. I don't know if you remember that. She kept saying, we're done, honey, we're done. And I said, no, we're not done. So
I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, she thought it was perfect. And I kept telling her, like, I need you to trust me on this. I need you to trust me. And And that's another thing I love about Nancy. And I'm like, just please, just trust me. And she's like, okay, I trust you. And so it came out awesome, you know? That skill was.
Turns out it was not done.
Because she could say that. So the other day we were having a rehearsal and our manager goes, you guys are like the Beatles. And then he pointed out which Beatles we were. And now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I'm totally McCartney. And you're like,
are.
I was going to ask who's who.
and then, well, you can say.
Wait, what?
You were Lennon, right?
I was Lennon.
And you're Ringo.
I was Ringo.
Like, Ringo's going to come out with a whole country album this year. I'm very excited.
So, yeah, that's how Pecadora, I mean, there was just a lot of elements of, like, I could hear that the son veracruzano, like the, you know, the cascabel, but I also wanted to be very dissonant, and I wanted it to sound a little dark.
I mean, dark and dissonant, those are the words you're looking for. Dark and dissonant. That's what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lay down vocal tracks, correct, Darlene?
I did, yes.
So what are you attempting to do when you lay down the vocal track on a track like Pecadora, which is meant to be a little bit moody and a bit dark?
Well, I sing in the chorus part, and before we always sing, I rehearse with Nancy. Usually, that was one of my challenges when I started singing. Was I do like the second voice, and I'm usually doing like the melody. So that's something I had to ear train because I'm so used to just singing melody. So ear training, I think she was very patient in the beginning. Well, you still are, but I think going into the song, we rehearsed it. I actually feel like I remember it being a little like that. Those notes, doesn't come natural to me. Now I feel like it's
Hearing
a
the
little
harmony.
bit more comfortable. But I guess, I mean, when that chorus, "He perdido la batalla," it comes in like it's saying, okay, you lost the war, but that doesn't mean
No, you lost the battle.
that you lost the battle, but it doesn't mean that you're a loser because of that. So I think for me that gives me power. Like he perdido la batalla, pero no soy perdedora. Like I love that line because it's like just because you lose things here and there doesn't make you a loser. It just means you have to. So I think vocally that I brought in that. I hope that's what you hear. Like I feel that I brought that, and even when we sing it live, it just I sing it for myself sometimes. So I think I guess it was just keeping it up because I'm singing that second harmony.
And then
yeah.
And then on the note of interpretation, how do you get yourself in the right, I guess, mindset to transmit an emotion on top of hitting the notes in tune? Darlene.
Ooh.
Darlene.
A lot crosses your mind sometimes because I am a believer in singing from your heart. Like a lot of people sing great and they interpret the song perfectly. But if I don't feel anything, to me, that was good. That was great. But even if it's not perfect, but you gave me goosebumps and you're making me believe what you're singing, that's the kind of singer that I feel like I've learned to become, because you could get into the perfection, the technique, but if those people aren't cheering or clapping or crying or looking at their friend, or because that's how when I'm in the audience and I see a songwriter or a band, I'm like, whoa, I'm blown away. Usually I'm like, I'm just like, wow. So I feel like it has a lot, but my first take is what am I gonna give? I go into it like that. Then the rest is like, oh man, I'm not singing the right note. Oh shoot, I just messed up. But I keep going. And I think in the end, it's like, I want to make people feel something, what I'm feeling too. I think that's the way I feel like I'll approach it.
And how do you approach trying to give the audience something to feel, Nancy?
Well, I'm lucky that I wrote the lyrics for Pecadora, and I remember what I felt when I was writing it. So every time I sing it, I get transported. I think songs are my diary. I always joke on stage that I'm the Chicana Taylor Swift.
She is, and that's when I said we need to get you a Grammy. You need to get a Grammy.
And so I think that I connect with the song with that feeling, that initial feeling. I try to remember it, even if it's painful. Actually, when it's painful, I kind of like it. It reminds me of like how far along I've come, right? Like you remember that pain and you're like, I'm not there anymore, but thank you for my pain.
Do you interpret it differently now that you're so far removed from the events that inspired the track?
No, I feel like I can get myself back into that feeling, but now it's a healed kind of feeling.
Okay.
Now I
I
go
love
into the pain
that.
and I'm like, I remember you.
I
I
love
love you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. I mean, I sing here and there. I do, if we do a trios, sometimes if Darlene is not able to be, I'll sing, whatever parts. And for me, I just really want to, I try to follow, because I'm used to like mariachi is like very powerful, like belting and all that. But with them, it's like very versatile. So I'm always trying to follow Nancy, or like I stand next to Darlene, so I'm always listening to like, how does she sing this or that? But it's that, I mean, when I'm not singing, I also want to play with a lot of expressiveness, because I agree with what Darlene said. Like, that's what a person remembers, is like, how did you make them feel in that moment? Unless they're musical, will they be like, oh, well, like that person's out of tune, or that person's not on time. But some people won't, some people who are not, like, they might just remember how you made them feel, or like, oh my gosh, like the energy that you gave, So,
So
yeah.
the last thing I want to ask you all is, what do you want to give people through your music? What do you want to leave them with? How do you want to make them feel?
I think that we're relatable, that we're gonna write about maybe things that you are feeling but don't know how to express it. I know that I'm a listener that way with songwriters or artists. Like, I think Nancy, I'm her fan in that sense. Like, she'll write songs. We've talked about it. Like, oh my gosh, her song, that Nancy, your song, that's exactly how I was feeling. Or so I think that's one thing I feel that we could be relatable to people. That they feel that connection, that we're not just here to write about. We could write about anything, but something that's important to us that you feel can connect with you as well, I think. Yeah.
For me, I think that sometimes people put themselves in a box, and I can say from experience, sometimes you're in that box and you're like, okay, we're mariachi, right? Fusion. We have mariachi instrumentation, so you're supposed to sound mariachi. No, not really. Like, we're using that. So I think for me, it's like, why do we have to restrict ourselves to one thing? Like, because each one of us is so many different things, and we can express ourselves in so many different ways. And so for me personally, like, this is a vehicle that where I can express myself, that I've never been able to do before, and there's things that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I did that, or like I can't even believe that I'm part of this ensemble, like, or it's just something beyond what I've ever would have imagined for myself, So I yeah, I'm crying
We
later.
cry a lot in this
I
band.
know. So it's, for me, it's that, is like, I think, we're all human and we all go through different things, and we're not just one thing. And I don't think we have to restrict ourselves to that just one thing, And I think our music, it does show that. I think once you listen to our album, it's like, what? Like, this is the same group? Like, there's so many different things, and I'm like, I listen to it, I'm like, I can't even believe it's us four. Like, it feels so different. You can put us in so many different categories, like, she could probably speak more to that, but yeah.
Para cerrar con broche de oro,
Para
Nancy?
cerrar con broche de oro, wow. We did a performance yesterday at this, it's called the Goddess Mercado. And this one beautiful singer came up to me and said, I saw the name Las Chorizeras, and I was like, what the heck is this? What is this? And as soon as I saw you ladies walk in, I was like, yes. And I think that is what Las Chorizeras represents for me. This, like, I want it to be bold in your face, but I also want it to be very respectful of the genre. And also, I don't want to forget the essence of why I started this, which is to give homage to the city where I was born. That now, you know, we go to gigs and I'm like, who's from Toluca? Who's ever been there? And one or two people will raise their hands, you know? And before it was like nobody, you know? And I just want to kind of bring a little piece of where I was born to LA, to the US, and pay tribute to that. So I hope this album does that. Our name alone is so shocking, but it also pays tribute to it. And that's what I want to give to the people.
Mm.